Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Every day, once a day, give yourself a present. Don't plan it, don't wait for it, just let it happen. Could be a new shirt at the men's store, a cat nap in your office chair, or 2 cups of good, hot, black coffee. Like this. A present. Like Christmas. Oh, man, that is the spot. Nothing like a great cup of black coffee.
This speaker to amplify my thoughts so people will quit asking me for sandwiches.
Please make your way into Macaw Auditorium. The program will begin in 10 minutes.
Sure I didn't harness the power of the sun.
No, it's definitely sticks. Being with sticks.
All right, go get 'em. How's it going, man? Ow! No! Ow! Ow! Not there! Ow! Ow!
Are you still here?
I thought the show was over.
It started?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
otherwise we're going to get so confused because there are a million things you can do. And so you just have to perfect your own art, and hopefully there will be room for it.
Please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin.
of the good red road. All I know is this concrete street. All I hear is the broken promise. For as long as the grass will grow, have you heard of the good red road? All I know is this endless highway. All I see are these iron fences. They keep me out, they lock you in, they keep you out, they lock you in, they keep you out, they lock you in, they keep you out, they lock you in. White is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. White is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. Say, white is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. And so we welcome you. We welcome you here to this beautiful summit. The Songcatchers have been together for decades. We are a multi-generational band. Our children are in this band, and our future is in this band. And the original members are here. Mark on the keyboards. My name is Laura. And we have Arlene Eskai of Dene Nation from the Navajo Reservation, one of the most senior keepers of song and tradition, to welcome you.
Good to be here with you on this momentous time. The words that were sung in this song come from our people. It's one of our ultimate goals in life. Hojongo Nasha Dole. The words translate to, I want to walk in beauty and harmony. This beauty trail my elders talk about, where all is in harmony, all is in balance. In the stories of creation of the people of this land, the different tribes, it talks about how the people here of this earth, we made commitments to the animals, to the plants, to the waters, the rivers, the oceans, the clouds and blessings that come from the sky, earth woman below, all her gifts. In exchange for what they give to us, this life, the air that we breathe, the waters that we drink, the food that we give to our little babies. In exchange for that, we would also reciprocate with love and respect and care. Hojongo na shadole. Let's walk that beauty trail. Each and every one of you, restore harmony. Bring it back.
Oh, and so I ask you, why are you here? Why did Bloomberg gather all of us here today for these next few days? We are one human race, and we have one chance now to turn around all the pain of global warming, of climate change, and visualize and actualize green. We are here because this is it. We have a chance. We have a chance to turn it around if we wake up. And so I ask you, do you believe in the good red road? It will heal your heart like the pull of the sea. The tide's gone out for oh so long. Now the tide is turning. I want everyone to stand up. Stand up. And look at the person next to you. And say thank you for being here. And for being awake. Because we come on out. We come on in. We come on out. We come on in. We come on out. You come on in. You come on out. We come on in. White is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. White is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. White is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. Say, white is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. White is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. White is the dawn, blue is the day, yellow is the eve, and black is the night. Again in color. Thank you. Have a beautiful conference. Thank you. We are the Songcatchers. Thank you, Bloomberg. Thank you for having us. Blessings.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural Bloomberg Green Festival. We have a great group joining from across the public and private sectors, which is so important because government cannot tackle climate change alone. The more that government and business leaders work together, the more we can seize the opportunities presented by climate change, and the more progress we can make. When we launched Bloomberg Green in 2020, we set out to help fast-track that progress by bringing data-driven analysis and insights to the challenge. This festival is a chance to share ideas and form new relationships, and Seattle is the perfect place to do it. The city has been a leader when it comes to ambitious climate policies, and it's also been a great partner to our foundation, Bloomberg Philanthropies. Together, we've shown that growing the economy and fighting the climate crisis go hand in hand. So thanks for all your good work. Enjoy the festival, and all the best.
Hi, I'm Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon. I'm happy to be a part of the inaugural Bloomberg Green Festival. It's an important event, one we hope will become a fixture in the effort to spur conversation, innovation, and collaboration around the issues of sustainability and climate change. At Amazon, when we co-founded the Climate Pledge 5 years ago, we took on an incredibly ambitious goal to reach net zero carbon by 2040. We took this commitment on knowing how challenging it would be to get there and that we'd need to invent solutions and solve problems that didn't have any answers, especially for a company like Amazon. Given the diverse set of businesses we operate and the immense surface area they cover, from large fulfillment centers and data centers to our global transportation network in the form of last-mile delivery vans, middle-mile trucks, ocean freight, and air travel, to the power and energy required to operate these operations, the Climate Pledge is perhaps the most audacious sustainability program from any company in the world. And we've been making a lot of progress. We've made significant progress in our carbon intensity over the last several years, invented and built some of the world's most advanced systems, tools, and solutions to drive our net zero path forward. We're delivering products to customers' doorsteps faster and with less packaging. We're traveling shorter distances thanks to the investments we've made to make our network more efficient and to place items closer to customers. This reduces carbon emissions as well as costs, all while giving our customers a better experience. In North America, we replaced 95% of the plastic air pillows from our delivery packaging with paper filler made of 100% recyclable materials, following the progress we've made in Europe, which is already at 100%. We have more than 20,000 electric delivery vehicles on the road all around the world, and these zero-emissions vehicles have made millions of deliveries so far. In 2019, we set a goal to match 100% of the electricity used across Amazon's global operations, including our data centers, corporate buildings, grocery stores, and fulfillment centers, with renewable energy by 2030. I'm proud to share that we met that goal 7 years ahead of schedule in 2023. To get there, we've been the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy in the world for 4 years running, according to Bloomberg Research, and we've invested billions of dollars in more than 500 solar and wind projects globally. As we look to the future, we know every year might look different on our path to 2040, but we'll continue investing in solar and wind projects while also supporting other forms of carbon-free energy. We also know that if we want to create a better environment and planet for our kids and our kids' kids, it has to be more than just Amazon. We've spent more than a decade building the knowledge, methodologies, and programs needed to tackle climate change head-on, and we're now unlocking this proprietary information and making it available to all in order to accelerate supply chain decarbonization. Our newly launched website, called the Amazon Sustainability Exchange, is a free site available to all that has information, guidelines, methodologies, and playbooks that Amazon has used to achieve its progress toward the Climate Pledge. We're doing this because we want to empower businesses of all sizes and across any industry to take steps to decarbonize and develop sustainable operations. Our hope is that the exchange becomes a place that's widely used and adopted by industry peers, including many of you who are here at the festival this week. And while you're in Seattle, I hope you'll take this opportunity to learn about all the climate efforts that are underway. Visit the Climate Pledge Arena, which carries our message and is the first certified zero-carbon arena in the world. There is no fossil fuel consumption. We're eliminating single-use plastics there, and it's just a really cool venue. Forge relationships that can help push us forward to solutions. Start conversations that could lead to the next big innovation. Share, collaborate, listen. This is a rapidly evolving and challenging space, which means there is a lot of invention and hard work ahead as we meet the important commitment we've made to our communities and future generations. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage our hosts, Bloomberg's John Frere and Meg Szabo.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bloomberg Green Festival. Woo! Let's hear it one more time for that incredible performance from the Songcatchers of their, yes. That was their Grammy-winning song, Dreaming in Color.
We are so excited to bring the journalism of Bloomberg Green to life in this amazing city and in this amazing venue over the next 3 days. Bloomberg Green was founded on the idea that climate change, but more importantly, climate solutions, would very soon and very quickly impact on everything that we do in our lives. And I think you're going to get a strong sense of that at the festival over the next few days. We're going to hear from industry leaders, policymakers, artists, musicians, activists, and innovators at the forefront of the climate solutions era.
We've got programming activities all across our Seattle Center campus, and they're all focused on our themes of climate economy, clean tech and innovation, policy and activism, and greener living. But before we get started, a couple of quick announcements. First, I would like to thank our title sponsor, Amazon. Our festival's official airline, Alaska Airlines. Our supporting sponsor, Providence. And our contributing sponsor, Weyerhaeuser.
And if you need to connect to Wi-Fi while you're here, you can find it on screens. I think it should be right over my head there. And it's also posted around the event space and on our app.
And that also, that brings us to our event app as well. You can use the QR code that is on the back of your badge to download that Bloomberg Green Festival app through Bizzabo. And you can take out your phones right now and do it. We also have it behind us before you silence your phones for the rest of the program. With that, you can also access our virtual networking community. You can chat with fellow attendees. You can build your agenda for the day, and lots more.
And you can also find us on the major social media platforms. Just post your pictures and engage in the conversation on social using the hashtag #BBGGreenFestival.
All right, with that, let's get started. We begin with a look at climate storytelling. Please welcome to the stage Emelie Mahdavian.
Hello. So in November of 2022, I went to the airport with 200 pounds of luggage in tow. It was mostly camera gear. It also contained a kind of embarrassing quantity of like peanut butter chocolate protein bars and mango slices and pistachios. And you learn a lot about yourself when you're packing for the kind of trip that I was going on. So at the airport, I picked up my daughter, who was 3 at the time. And I felt her little arms around me as I held her. And there was just no way to say goodbye. She cried, and she held on to me so tight. I told her that I loved her. I promised her that I was coming back. But there was nothing that I could say that was going to make it okay, and she wouldn't let go of me. So I had to disentangle myself from this little person that I love, and it almost broke my heart to walk through airport security. It was going to be 11 weeks before I would see her again. I was on my way to the collapsing ice shelf of Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica. Thwaites is nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier because it contains 2 feet of sea level rise, and it holds back 10 feet of sea level rise from West Antarctica. And it's in such a remote area, even for Antarctica, that on-the-ground research is really not easy. So, 6 flights and several weeks later, I had just been dropped off at one of the most remote places on Earth, a lone filmmaker in a team of 7 scientists. We calculated that at that moment, people on the International Space Station were actually closer to other humans on Earth than we were there. And we will be the last witnesses of this strangely beautiful and isolating place. So, we have this satellite radar. It's a time lapse. It starts in 2015. Hopefully it'll come up here. It's much nicer to look at than my face. Maybe. Maybe it won't come up. No? Well, I can tell you what it looks like, but it wouldn't be nearly as nice. Oh, no. Nuh-uh. You can't see this one yet. That's the sneak peek of the film which is coming, but you're not allowed to see that yet. The one I was hoping for is a satellite radar. It's a black and white image, and it's a time lapse. And in it, you can see the collapse of this ice shelf. So the western tongue of Thwaites Glacier is already gone. You can see it just flowing away. The eastern tongue, which is in the top of this image, has been pinned in place by an undersea feature, and it's kind of holding on. But when you see the image, it's incredibly dramatic. I swear to God, if you saw it, you'd be petrified. There's a little image of a tent, and there's all these crevasses pointing at our camp. And they're spreading towards our camp, and the whole thing is just slowly drifting out to sea. Because, in fact, while we were there, we were drifting 2 to 3 meters out to sea every day. And there were crevasses spreading towards our camp. So I felt incredibly fortunate to be this lone filmmaker with the opportunity to tell the story and make a film about these scientists and their very, very important work. Because just imagine a world in which, New York City, London, Amsterdam, Florida, Bangladesh, all these places are drowning under 10 feet of sea level rise. It's a catastrophe of unimaginable scale, right? It's a future we absolutely don't want for our planet. And so, this very, very small team, it was 6 scientists actually, 1 mountaineer and me, all but one of us, women, packed and repacked our gear, got on a tiny little airplane, got dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and got to work. We pitched our tents in a windstorm, and we built this little tiny community living there together for a month. I witnessed the care that the scientists take in gathering their data and the care that they take for each other. We cooked each other meals. We celebrated holidays together. We celebrated birthdays together. We melted snow for water. We peed in Nalgene bottles. Everyone always wants to know that part, so there you go. We were this tiny community at the end of the earth, reliant on each other for absolutely everything. And during that time, that month that we spent on the ice together, we never forgot the unseen worlds around us, the crevasses that were hidden underground and spreading towards us, the icebergs that were tipped on the horizon, telling us that we're in fact afloat, and our GPS measurements that we took every day, telling us that yes, as we slept, we had drifted 9 more feet out into the sea. So now, I'd like to share a sneak peek from the film. The film is still in the process of the edit and financing. So this scene that I'm going to show begins with our main character, Naomi. She's a PhD student who is on her very, very first Antarctic expedition.
me to trade out?
I think we like to just make it flat.
Do you think we need to make it wider?
A little bit.
Okay, here. I'm always gonna hold this so that the ends are never facing anybody until we are ready to put it in the hole.
Yeah.
I study what happens to the glaciers when they lose their ice shelves.
At the plate.
The ice that's currently melting at the bottom of the ice shelf is probably a few thousand years old, older than the volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius that destroyed Pompeii. It's like time
2,
disappearing.
1, and now.
That was so cool!
This place feels like home now. But there's something unsettling knowing the very ground we are walking on will simply not be. It's like a family breaking apart. One moment you have a mother, a father, a brother, and the next moment, the structure of the world you thought you had is gone. Then you turn around and look back and realize it had been collapsing all along.
So Planet A is about a doomsday glacier. But the point of the film is not, in the end, all doom and gloom. It's a film about a group of people who have a real sense of purpose and frequently also a real sense of humor. When I set out to make the film, I wanted to ask this question, in the face of disaster, how do you get up and do the work? We all have to confront our collective climate anxiety. We have to act, and we need stories that show us how to do this. When I look at the stories that dominate climate storytelling, particularly coming from the polar regions, I see a lot of men. I see a lot of adrenaline. I see a lot of thrill-seeking. I see a lot of stories that take pleasure in danger and raise up the image of the individual singular hero battling nature. But what I believe in my core is that to confront the crisis that we face, the model we need features collaboration, connection with our unique planet, connection with each other. We don't need stories about courting death, but ones that show us how to act from love. These women have that. They show us how to muster a sense of agency in the face of, frankly, the most frightening climate story on this planet. They're staring down disaster, and they do experience anxiety, but they get up and they do the work. They don't stop. They come from a place of love. And so the ground is literally shifting beneath their feet, and they don't lose their footing. So in the end, I made it home. I felt my daughter's arms around my neck again. And whenever I take her bicycling by the beach, I think about the weights and why I went on that crazy trip. She's the reason that I'm so passionate about us getting this right. She's the person that I love, the one whose future I really care about, the one that I would do absolutely anything for. So the question that I want to pose to everyone else with this film is, what would you do for love? Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg's Kira Bindram and Aaron Rutkoff.
Hello, everybody. I'm Aaron Rutkoff. I'm the executive editor for Bloomberg Green.
I'm Kira Bindram. I am an editor at Bloomberg Green who works on our greener living coverage.
Reaching net zero is a tall order with a daunting timeline. The good news is there are a lot of people focused on the challenge and rising to it. The bad news is they don't always get a lot of attention unless their name is Bill Gates or Al Gore or this Elon Musk guy who gets some attention sometimes.
So that is why we decided to partner with our colleagues at Business Week on the inaugural Green Ones to Watch list. These folks might not have the name recognition of a Gore or a Gates or a Musk, but they are doing really incredible work critical to the future of the planet.
Here are the green ones to watch: investors, policymakers, scientists, activists who are helping shape the future of the environment.
Ben Idelson, host of the Climate Papa podcast, founded Step Change to back startups that are bringing climate tech to consumers.
As chief scientist and co-founder of Longpath Technologies, Carolyn Alden helped develop a cheaper and better approach to identifying methane leaks.
Tom Chi launched @One Ventures, which is investing hundreds of millions of dollars in startups that work in air, water, soil, and biodiversity.
At 22, Xiye Bastida is already an activist, founder, speaker, writer, and film producer. Last year, her nonprofit Re-Earth Initiative raised $1 million to fund grassroots activism.
As co-founders at Banyu Carbon, Alex Gagnon and Julian Sachs developed a unique technology to remove the atmospheric CO2 that is harming marine life. I hope you all had a chance to see their demo at the Greener Living Village today.
As founding partner at venture capital firm Propeller, Julie Pullen is backing early-stage startups that treat the ocean as a potential fix for global warming.
This one blew my mind. To help realize her goal of cleaning up the apparel industry, Kim van der Weerd actually took a job managing a garment factory in Cambodia before becoming intelligence director of the Transformers Foundation.
As co-founder of public benefit corporation Floodbase, Bessie Schwartz is helping pioneer ways to use satellites to track floods more effectively and helping insure against flood risk.
Infinitum founder Ben Schuler is reinventing the motor for a world increasingly focused on climate tech and powered by renewable energy.
As a special advisor on climate change for the Inter-American Development Bank, Avinash Prasad is focused on making more money available for climate projects in developing countries.
Kate Marvel is a research physical scientist at NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, where she is unpacking and demystifying the science behind global warming.
Founder of Youth for the Future Africa and the Rise Up movement, Vanessa Nakate is adding climate policy to her experience in youth climate activism.
Congratulations to all of our honorees. We know that you will be hearing a lot more from this group in the future.
Many of the folks from the Ones to Watch list are here with us for the summit, including the person who's about to come on stage next.
Yes, I'm so excited to welcome to the stage Xiye Bastida. We are going to have a great conversation about her work as an activist. You brought props.
I did bring props, but you cannot see them yet.
Thank you so much for coming. I am fangirling a little bit. I've edited so many stories about you, and I'm just so impressed with the work that you're doing. So I thought we could start kind of at the beginning. You started doing climate activism work when you were 15. When I was 15, I think I was thinking about boys and like getting my driver's license. So I'm very curious what got you into this space, and what did getting into the space mean to you at the very beginning?
So I love this question firstly because I like to start by saying I did not start my climate work. It was my parents, it was my community, it was my roots. My parents met at the first ever climate conference in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 when they were in their 20s. So when they were my age, my parents were already doing climate work, which is even more impressive than youth activists today because we see the climate crisis in our daily lives. And, you know, my community, I come from an indigenous community in central Mexico called Otomi Toltec. And we have a lot of values around respect for nature, reciprocity, reverence, intergenerational collaboration, and seeing nature as an extension of us and us as an extension of nature. I always love sharing this detail about my language, which is that the word for skin is the same as the word for the outer layer of the earth. So embedded in our culture is the notion that we are extensions of the earth. And we have not been behaving in that way. You know, imagine a world where Category 5 hurricanes grow in over 2 days. Imagine a world where we are at 1.64 degrees of warming for 12 consecutive months, where our unifying story is a flood or a hurricane or a wildfire, and where over 1 billion animals can die in one single wildfire. And now imagine that there are children that have known nothing but that world. And I am one of those children, one of those youth today. For many people in the climate space that have been in the climate space for decades, they know that, you know, they knew how bad it was going to get, but we, as youth climate activists, know nothing else. My community flooded when I was just 13 years old, and I think that it's incredibly important to share that story because it was not my parents talking about climate that got me to act. It was the fact that it happened to me. And I don't want it to happen to people for them to act. We don't want people to experience the climate crisis to act. So I think that is some of the context of why my generation was rising up, and millions of youth were in the streets in 2019, 7.4 million across the world, and many of you might have gone to that march. Many of you might know people who organized it. And the truth is that everybody in this room, we know what the stakes are, but it still hasn't become, the topic of interest of everybody around the world. And we're still using, each year, 1.75 Earths, meaning we're using Earth's capacity to regenerate 1.75 times faster. When my mom was growing up, the Earth Overshoot Day was in December. Now it's August 1st. That is a very long way of saying that we are here, my generation is here today, because we have no other choice. And we really want to make sure that when we talk about activism, which is a very mystified term, what does it mean to be an activist? What does it mean to speak up? I think it means to be creative. Because creativity is looking at something and seeing how it can be more beautiful, how it can work better, how it can be more effective, or in this case, how can we work towards balance with Mother Earth? Many of you might have heard that we have passed 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries. Who saw those news? And what does that mean? It means that there is a safe operating zone that we have passed in temperature, in pathogens, in nitrogen, and other chemical concentrations that I frankly don't understand. And I think that's another one of the issues. We expect everybody to understand everything. But today we are in a case where many people from my generation are either totally ignoring the climate crisis and focusing on daily trends over consumption, or so embedded in it that we cannot think of anything else. And I think the path forward is some of the stuff that I'm going to be sharing today, which is about how do we work together intergenerationally, so that we are not saying things like, adults stole our future. We're saying, we have a problem now, how can we fix it together?
Yeah. It's a perfect segue. I want to ask you about the role of youth activism. And we wrote a story last year that you graciously participated in about, we called it sort of Greta Thunberg's climate cohort, people who sort of started in their teens 6-7 years ago and have grown up in this movement. And this tension between the way that adults, older people sort of look to the next generation and say, you've got it, you'll handle it. It's so great that the youth activists are getting involved, but then also kind of absolve themselves of responsibility and say, the next generation's going to handle it. I think I'm curious, sort of a twofold question. Why is it so important to have youth activists in this space? But also, do you feel like sometimes there's a little bit of lip service being paid to, not actually listening to the things that you guys are saying?
I mean, it's easy to not listen to the things that we're saying, because the things that we're saying entail changing full systems, and we are comfortable in the systems that we have created. And when you have a perspective that is trying to tell you, let's stop, let's change, I understand how difficult that can be, because I can feel it, in my own nonprofit. When somebody else has an idea, you think of everything that needs to happen for it to become a reality. And so I understand why it can feel that youth activists can be naive at times at saying, we need to be net zero by this date, we need to this, and this. And there's this concept that we don't understand the real world, whatever that means, which I think it's everybody's own perception. But I think that the naiveness is looking at the level of our crisis and thinking that we can't go on any longer. That is truly what our problem is. And so when we talk about youth activism in spaces of influence, for example, the Secretary General has advisors, that they're youth advisors that are helping him see the world the way that youth activists see it. And you might see some of the headlines of the Secretary General saying, we are on a highway to hell, which is, I don't like that messaging or that language, but it is because he's seeing the world through our eyes. And then we see other companies, embedding youth as advisors, etc. But having one call a month is not enough to truly include the views of youth. A few months ago, I was in this conversation where we had CEOs of companies and youth activists together, youth climate activists. And one of them said, I had never thought of talking with a youth activist because I would think they would just scream at me or something. And I think that's another perception of activism. It's confrontational and it makes you uncomfortable. And my question for the leaders out there, not only the corporate leaders, but also government leaders, is it not necessary to be uncomfortable, to change our minds, to see the problems, to be empathetic to the way that youth are feeling across the world? And that's why I think that every single company, no matter who you are, needs to have youth advisors, and not just one or two, because it's harder to stand up when you're just yourself. We need to have true cohorts, true inclusion, true implementation, because at the end of the day, we want youth to be able to shape the world because we want to live in it. We want our kids to live in it. We want it to be healthy and safe. So that is what we really are here for. And we know that that requires changing a lot of the relationships that have been built across our modern world. Like sometimes adults have only contact with youth when it's internships or fellowships. We don't have intergenerational circles, like sitting around a fire, telling stories, which is part of the way that indigenous communities pass down storytelling and knowledge. So how can we even tap into indigenous systems of thinking and being to improve and change the world that we have today?
How would you say, I mean, you've now been doing this quite a while, how would you say your tactics or style or approach has evolved since you started to now, if it has?
Activism has evolved over decades, and it's, I think one of the biggest issues that we had as climate activists was to think that we were making up all of these new tactics of activism, whether that be blocking a street or social media blast or all of these other things. And what I've come to learn is how important it is to look at past stories of activism, because they have shown us what works, what persistence works, what type of organized citizen action does. And something that I can't believe I would say this now, because I wouldn't think this 4 or 5 years ago, which also our mindset changes, is sometimes for chief sustainability officers, they need activists. They need activists because if we don't push the public narrative and the pressure to something that is outside of what you think is possible, you will not be able to do what actually is possible. So activists are here to help everybody push the boundaries of our imagination, so that whatever you want to implement and change in your company it becomes a reality. And as I grow older, and all of us grow older, everything becomes more nuanced. And I was having a conversation with somebody earlier saying that sometimes we lose our power. We feel like we lose our power when we understand the world better. And that's why it's so important to go always back to a place where we feel clarity. And for me, that place is nature. Because when I go back to my territory, to my hometown, to my land, again, I get this feeling of what really is the work that we need to do, which is a deep work of transformation. So that's what I would say. Go to the place where you find clarity and ask yourself, what am I shaping this world to be? How am I being a good architect of the future? And then I would just like to add that I think activism, and I think all of us should be activists, or whatever word you choose, has three aspects. Each of us, I think, should be involved in deep community work first, which in my case, now I'm moving to Mexico City. I graduated from university in the US, I'm moving back to Mexico. In my case, deep community work is going to be working with the Chinampas and the Ajolotes, which is working with the Chinampas and the Ajolotes, which is this ancient system in southern Mexico City that was built by indigenous communities prior. And it's one of the systems that can generate the most food possible for Mexico City. So deep community work for me looks like helping the Ajolotes, which is, if you watched How to Train Your Dragon, that's what an ajolote looks like without the wings. The second type of work we should be involved in is intersectional work. Because we're all in silos, we're in echo chambers, we need to reach out. One way you can look at it is, in everything that I do, I should hold the hand of somebody younger and hold the hand of somebody older. Because mentorship goes all ways, and we need to be able to think through this together. Another way of looking at it is, go to the places that do make you uncomfortable. If you're not in climate and you're here, thank you. If you're in climate and you're here, also thank you. Sorry. And for me, intersectional, does it work? Yeah. For me, intersectional work has also been going to the UN climate conferences. I've been to the past 4 COPs, which, my first UN conference, I was 15, which, that's crazy. But the language of negotiation is so incredibly difficult. Anybody knows what NCQG means? No, and that's climate finance, the biggest thing that we're going to have to worry about in the next 50 years. How the global north finances the global south for energy transition, for emissions reductions, for loss and damage after climate disasters. The NCQG stands for the New Collective Quantified Goal. And they choose those words because they don't want us to know what's going on. So our job as activists is to be translators as well. Translators of the work that happens on the streets, of how we feel as youth, how we feel in our communities, with these entities that have so many barriers of entry that you need to read hundreds of documents to understand what the Paris Agreement is, what the Loss and Damage Fund is, what the NCQG is. And all it is how do we actually stay below 1.5 degrees of warming and make sure that the global south gets the support that it needs and the frontline communities in the global north. And then the last thing that we all need to include in our activism work is narrative work. And you just heard a beautiful storytelling session. And narrative storytelling is so critical because the stories that we have been told of the world are the stories where more is better and better is bigger. And that's everything that we have been taught to know, like more highways, more buildings. And in indigenous communities, there's the concept of good living, of good enough, of not better but good. And so we have to question ourselves, how do we tell stories of good? What is good? When do we need no more? And how can the economic system adapt to know more? How can we see value in nature? Why is nature more valuable when it's dead than when it's alive? All of these questions we have to think through because they might be uncomfortable, they might mess up the economic systems in the ways that we know it, but the earth cannot handle it anymore. So we need to come together to see that life is taking care of life is our responsibility. We should not live from the earth, we should live with the earth.
I want to give you a chance to talk about your documentary, but I want to ask one more question in this vein because, we're all here at a conference together. I would like to believe that everyone in this room cares about climate change and is focused on it in some capacity, but I'll just speak for myself here. I will take my flight home. I will put my lanyard down. I will sit on my couch. All I'm going to want to do is watch Love Island and think about nothing. I'm just going to want to space out. And so even when you care, even when you're invested in the cause, it's so easy to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, having been to so many conferences, having done so much of this, what would you say to people that they should be taking away from this that probably isn't like go home, watch Love Island? Like what is the thing that they should be taking out of this space?
So you took my little spiel out of my brain because I was going to show everybody the conferences that I've been to.
My gosh.
This is like 3 months or 4 months, I think. You might recognize some of these badges. Oh they're from different years, like this one, the Aspen Ideas. And, I like some of them that are wooden. Maybe we should think of that for all of them. That's not the point. The point is, why are we collecting badges as medals? Going to conference from conference. And that is not to say that being here is incredible, because now we have a shared badge. And all of us have this common experience now. And we're drawing this line of connections, and this in person is where we meet each other and when we can tell to each other how much we care and what we're doing for the world. But the question is, when we go back home and we sit down and we look at our schedule, what do we do? And I think, and this is a question I ask myself almost every week, right? Like, what am I doing now? How can I reprioritize the things that I'm doing to have impact, to lower the barriers of entry, and to take care of ourselves? Because that is something that a lot of us in the climate space don't do. We're not taking enough care of ourselves. And I need you to take care of yourselves because we need the movement to be resilient. And we need to tell that to everybody in this movement, even if you're joining also. And really the message behind, posing that question of what do we do when we go home and sit down is that everything needs to change. So everybody should have this big question on a blank sheet. What do I do in order to help Mother Earth, in order to help my community, and in order to help the future? And you might have 2, 3 things. You might have the things that we have been told work for 50 years. But what we really need is that type of innovation, that type of new storytelling, of new narrative, so that we go from thinking what world we're leaving to future generations to what generations we are leaving to the world. Who are we behaving as humanity? What are we doing on this planet? And it turns very philosophical very quickly, but I do think that is what we have been missing, a connection to life, a connection to nature, a connection to our climate stories even. Because many people, when you ask them what your climate story is, it is a story of sadness. And I think our climate stories should be stories of reconnection. There should be stories of when we fell in love with nature again, when we decided that we were going to be protectors, we were going to be defenders. And the last thing is, ask yourself what your superpower is. What is the thing that makes you stand out in a room? What is the thing that makes you stand out in your community? What is that thing like kindness or humility that is going to change the world? Because I do think that what we're missing the most is those type of ways of being. And I think I'm asking also from the bottom of my heart that you truly put yourself in the feet of young people and ask, you know, in 2100, I'm going to have grandkids. I'm going to love somebody who is alive in the year 2100. And all of our climate models go up till 2100. And they're not looking very good right now. So how do we make sure that in that future that we're envisioning, it is a thriving, regenerative future? And all of us are here because we want to shape that world. And so in the next few sessions, in the next day, today and tomorrow, you're going to be seeing all of these different types of ideas of people who are trying, of people who are breaking boundaries, of people who are remembering. Because remember also that it's not just about looking forward, but looking back, about how Earth has developed systems, because Earth is very wise. And we would do very good to follow the systems of the Earth that have created all of the fastest carbon capture ever, the fastest oxygen generation systems ever. So that is really the way that we need to look at the world. And I thank you all for being here and being part of that story. The new story of what humanity did to make sure that we leave the Earth better than we found it.
So we are at time, but in our last 10 seconds that I just allocated us, when will people and where will they be able to see The Way of the Whale, which is your documentary, or a documentary that you have been a part of?
Yes, and I will keep this one short, I promise. There's a film called The Way of the Whale that I'm working on, and it will be premiering in September in Climate Week. So if you'll be in Climate Week, please get in touch with me. I would love to have you there. It's a story about following the gray whale from the Arctic Ocean, from Mexico to the Arctic Ocean, seeing all the challenges that the whale has to go through, but it's also a story about collaboration, interconnectedness, and what it looks like to learn from past environmental wins to have new ones over and over again. So you're invited to the screening of The Way of the Whale, and you'll see it on streaming next year.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. I mean,
thank you.
Yes. Xiye.
So good. You were so good.
Please welcome to the stage Tom Xiye, founding partner of @ONE Ventures, Julie Pullen, chief scientist and partner of Propeller, and Ben Schuller, founder and CEO of Infinitum, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Michelle Ma.
turn the mic on. That's not right. Hey, how are you?
Great. Well, something I always tell people when I talk about my beat, which is climate tech, is that I love writing about climate tech because it's focused on solutions. And here I'm sitting on the stage with 3 people who are working on solutions confronting climate change right now. And you guys are sitting in kind of all different parts of the climate tech ecosystem. We got 2 investors, 1 founder, and I'm really excited for this conversation because I think we're going to dig into a lot here. I think, Julie, let's start with you because I'm always really curious about people's climate action origin stories and how they get into what they do. And you have an interesting one because you started as an ocean scientist. So I'm just curious, like, what compelled you to move from that and into venture capital and help found Propeller?
Yeah, it's not an obvious connection, but for me, it was really just a thread that ran across my my life, which has been the oceans. And it was a very particular period of my life. I had been a professor as a climate scientist, an earth system scientist, and I was on sabbatical in the Philippines as a Fulbright visiting professor. So I was studying how the ocean and atmosphere communicate with each other, sometimes in a whisper and sometimes in a roar when you get these ferocious winds that stir up the ocean. And my field site kept on getting inundated by typhoons, ever-increasing typhoon damage. And it wasn't just the damage to the villages in my field site, but it was the damage that climate change was causing to the people. I taught graduate students tropical meteorology at the University of the Philippines, and these students were vastly affected by climate change. In fact, there was a survey that came out a couple years ago that said that of all the young people on the planet, the Philippines, the majority of them in this survey were extremely worried about climate change, and even a greater majority said it impacted their ability to function. Being in this country I came to love, and with people I came to love, and seeing already the climate impacts of the most climate impacted country on the planet, which the Philippines is, it changed me. I came back, I left academia, I went to help lead a startup in the climate risk space to deliver more granular information from our climate models to help inform about the climate perils that are coming our way on this planet. And I felt like the risks are mounting and there's more to be doing. And what we want to also be doing besides reducing emissions on our planet, which is the most important thing we can be doing, but is to expand the space of climate solutions. And the oceans is the seat of not just our climate stability, but the oceans are also have a vast potential to provide more in terms of carbon dioxide removal, to provide a lot in terms of more than 30% of emissions reductions associated with maritime transportation, associated with also the ability to develop offshore renewables centered in the ocean. So the blue economy is this incredible opportunity from an investment perspective. So we created Propeller in recognition of just that enormous opportunity. And we're very pleased to have partnerships with some of the leading ocean science institutions and to be working very closely at an early stage, pre-seed and seed, and investing in novel solutions, many of them coming out of the minds of scientists. There are 2 other scientists who are on the list with us, founders Julian and Alex of Banyu Carbon. So if you were out in the front lobby, you saw the magic that they're able to create in a beaker. To be able to draw down CO2 out of the oceans. Phenomenal if you have a chance to visit and talk to them. This is a company in our portfolio, and it's unlocking that science and innovation that is at the core of what we do, which I think is vital for where we find ourselves in the planet's trajectory right now.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like traditionally people viewed the ocean as a victim of climate change, and you're saying the ocean is actually a key way to unlock change and solutions instead.
And so many people are connected to it. Provide renewal for individuals to go to the ocean. Xiye talked about nature and the connectivity that people feel with nature. So many people feel that towards the oceans and want to do all they can to protect and restore and revitalize the oceans. And this is such an important time for all of those activities.
Well, Tom, I want to turn to you since you're also an investor on the stage with us. You once told me something I thought was really interesting, which is that you love to invest in overlooked solutions and overlooked startups. Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that and what is the best example of that out of your portfolio companies?
Well, there is, in venture capital, it's very common to like follow the herd, follow the fashion. And it drives up massive valuations and it makes it really expensive to play at all. And actually, a lot of this is related to diversity, equity, inclusion stuff as well, because there's the sensibility that when people are looking off the beaten path, then they're like helping people out because there's these underprivileged people and you're going to pull them up because you found them in the rough. In practice, that's the underpicked pile. And if you get the best from the underpicked pile, it's way better than anything you get from the overpicked pile. And it's actually that simple. Like, if you actually want to succeed at this, you need to go to places where you're not going to be incredibly crowded in. Now, some of the ways that we differ is that it means that we end up backing a number of companies where it doesn't fit exactly the pattern match template that a lot of Silicon Valley goes for. So, for example, in Silicon Valley, it's very normal to be like, oh, you got to meet this founder. They're so charismatic. They could sell ice to an Eskimo. And in our firm, we call that charisma distortion. Like,
the cult of personality.
It's actually a negative, because if a person can convince you to believe something that's not true, that's actually a drag force on your diligence, right? It's just true. Sorry, guys. But you have amazingly charismatic founders like Adam Neumann. Anyway, so... and look, they repeated the mistake. It's the largest Andreessen bet ever, is to double down on Adam Neumann. Anyway, so that's how deeply ingrained craziness is. So if you can just step aside from craziness, the world is a lot more sane out of that overpicked pile.
So who out of your portfolio companies would you say?
That one's really simple. So like, we backed this company, Ascend Elements, has the absolute best unit economics for lithium battery recycling on planet Earth. Like 2 to 2.5 times better than Redwood Materials, and they can't actually get all the way through the process, so that's the whole thing. When we're getting into this bet, Redwood Materials is led by the former CTO of Tesla. It is absolutely the charismatic, inevitably they must win kind of feeling in the valley. In practice, we destroyed them. It was not even close. Like, technically, we miles ahead. We've now built the largest battery recycling plant in North America, which is also the headquarters of Redwood Materials. And just to give you the sense of the quote-unquote head start, when we got into Ascend Elements, 40 million valuation, Redwood Materials right at that moment valued over 3 billion. And we just blew by them. Wasn't close. Now, the difference in conventional wisdom, majorly overpicked pile, bid it up like crazy without the progress there, compared to Ascend Elements where, I don't know, the CEO was kind of like a middle manager in a big corporation. That's his vibe. It's like super not the entrepreneurial, like, like charge in and like win everything kind of vibe. But the dude delivers. So it's like, look, you execute, you deliver, you're working with scientists that have the best tech. We're going in.
So Ben, you're the lone founder on the stage here. Your company solves a very interesting problem within the climate space that I didn't realize until I started looking into you, Infinitum, what you do with motors, that was a problem space. So can you talk a little bit about what the problem is from a climate perspective traditional motors have and how what you guys are doing at Infinitum kind of solves for that?
Absolutely. And before I get started, I want to let everyone know that I have a stutter. If you're wondering what's going on up here, now you know. So as many of you maybe know, electric motors consume over half of global electricity annually. And the topology of an electric motor hasn't changed almost ever. And we have our cell phones that started out as a giant brick, and they've evolved into like a tiny compact item, and the device that consumes over half of global electricity annually hasn't changed at all. So an item manufactures a smaller, lighter, quieter, and more efficient electric motor. And we are experiencing a lot of adoption in the data center segment, and primarily for cooling all the servers. And in 2023, we were deployed at a handful of data centers, and over that time, we were able to increase efficiency, decrease emissions on average of 20%. And only a half year after today, we're at roughly 20 campuses. We have experienced quite a lot of growth, and with that growth has enabled us to open up our second manufacturing facility in Mexico. I'll just add, if there's anyone out there that's ever interested in reducing your OPEX, increasing efficiency, I'm your guy.
And I think you've kind of stumbled upon a huge problem space right now within tech, and not just clean tech, but tech overall, which is data centers and their energy consumption emissions. You know, what a time to be working on motors.
We got lucky. Yeah.
So Julie, something interesting that I found out about Propeller is that you guys have what you call an Ocean MBA program to help bring ideas from kind of the bench to pilot stage. And I feel like that's so often where you know, really, really great innovators, scientists get stuck, is they have a great idea that works out in a lab setting, but translating that and forming that into a company is a different skill set. So what do you think is the formula for turning a successful idea into a successful company?
Yeah, it's way more than just an idea, and it's often even, you know, to recognize what's the science piece that has a thread that's actually technology, right? That can be deployed into the world and make a difference as a solution. So that connectivity to a solution and to what customers are willing to pay for is really what we help draw out in our cohorts of startups and scientists that we bring to our Ocean MBA. It's a really unique, very short, mini condensed MBA, which we call it. And really some of the most interesting discussions happen amongst the cohort themselves, and as they're teasing out really where the value in what they offer is and what their underlying product can be in the space. And we connect them with mentors. We have a really illustrious group of lecturers that come and talk about the nitty-gritty of being a startup founder, and often focused on the challenges that people will face. Tom was speaking about some of them, you know, in terms of raising funds. And to just give a preview of what that life and that path is like, and to crucially, I think, make them feel part of a community of people who are solving in these spaces. I think we can often overlook with a lot of the dire news that's coming out about our planet these days, really the role that we all play, really incredibly vital role as solution finders in our own lives and in the ways that we are in the world. And so this is one way that we can shine a light on and help people to meet their potential in developing their own startups.
Yeah. And Ben, I feel like your startup has overcome perhaps an even greater hurdle that many climate tech startups don't even reach the scale. But you raised a pretty successful Series E round, almost $200 million. Like you mentioned, you just completed your second facility in Mexico. That's a big deal. I think getting to commercial scale is a much harder hurdle, especially for these hardware-intensive, CapEx, OpEx-intensive projects that today's climate tech startups are. So what advice do you have for other startup founders out there who are trying to get over this valley of death and raise the kind of capital required to pull off this large of an endeavor?
I think it's not as much about the capital and more just about the customers. I know that's maybe an easy answer, although you need the customers that purchase the first time, and then you need them to purchase again, and again. I think, and you also need them to be purchasing at a profitable area, and if it's not profitable yet, it needs to have a clear path to profitability. I think it's a fairly easy answer. It's about the customers. Get the customers, get the revenue, you'll succeed. With the issues in the financial market over the last year, I think it's a hard one to tell the story of if I build a factory, it will come. You almost have to have the order in your hand, and then you'll get the factory.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, I'm curious your take on this because, I think so much of green tech, clean tech, there comes this perception that, every new technology that is renewable or better than the fossil fuel alternative is more expensive. There's a green premium. Do you think a clean tech startup can succeed with a green premium if it's more expensive than the fossil fuel? Okay, well, then, but isn't that the case for the majority of clean tech out there today?
Yes.
Say green hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuel, carbon capture, all of it.
Yes.
So what do we do? How are we supposed to compete against the landscape?
No, what Ben has just said is the right formula. So what you do is you find the tech that actually has better unit economics, and the bar that we're going for is not a premium, it's not even parity. The bar that we typically aim for, and we base it on the physics first principles of it, is whatever the margin is for your industry, we want to find the deep tech that'll crash the cost of production by more than 3x your margin. So if you have a 20% margin industry, we're going to crash the cost of production by 60%. If you have a 30% margin industry, we crash by 90%. The reason is that the industries that are doing the most damage to the planet already have an enormous install footprint. It's all brownfield, right? They maybe have 0 to 2% greenfield build in a year, which means when you think you're competing on parity, you're not. If you come in there with equivalent OpEx to the dirty, damaging tech of the past, but people have all this CapEx inertia, they won't move because of the CapEx inertia.
Yeah.
Because you're making them retire equipment that would last for 20 years. They're making them retire on year 6. And they don't want to write off those huge losses.
Well, that sounds too good to be true then. I mean, what are some examples of this?
Well, Ascend is one of them, and actually the entire portfolio. If you go to @oneventures.com, it's the whole portfolio, guys. And once you get that, it's exactly what Ben was saying. People want those unit economics so badly, they're rapacious for it. They will go and they will actually start ordering from you even before you can produce. And when you have the offtake agreements effectively as guaranteed revenue at the point of production, then all you really need to solve is a supply limit problem. When you have infinite demand and you just need to solve a supply limit problem, you can solve a supply limit problem with a debt level risk. And if you can solve that with a debt level risk and get an equity level return, that's how you win, basically. Equity level return typically comes with equity level risk. But if you find the deep tech that crashes that unit economic barrier by that much, you can execute and get to exits at equity level outcomes with debt level risk. And that's how you beat the whole market. Yay.
I'm afraid that's it's a winning formula, but I'm afraid that's all the time we have. So thank you.
This guy already did it. So just
thank
do what
you
he
all
did.
so much.
Yes.
Please welcome to the stage Adrian Grenier, actor, filmmaker, and environmentalist, for a conversation with Bloomberg Philanthropies' Antha Williams.
Now you feel so far away now.
We made it look so easy.
Yeah.
Well, first things first, I have to give Adrian an extra special thank you for being here, because in the course of my reading to prepare for this, I learned that today is your birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate that.
So I'm really thrilled and honored to be joined by longtime activist, actor, producer Adrian Grenier. I'm Antha Williams. I lead the climate and environment programs at Bloomberg Philanthropies, which includes Mike Bloomberg's work on oceans and air pollution and energy transition, sustainable finance, and cities. But today I know the crowd is really thrilled to hear from you. And so I want to thank everybody for spending their evening with us, but you on your birthday, especially for your commitment to these issues. And I just want to start by asking about what brought you to this second act as an environmental activist.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering, is it my second act? I feel like I'm continuously iterating and always reinventing myself. I mean, I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, and I think it's important to remain curious and not become entrenched in what you think you know. And that not only allows you to approach the challenges in new ways, also to see what you're missing, but it keeps it interesting, right? It keeps it fresh and fun and curious. And as a creative storyteller, I'm always looking for new ways of communicating with the world about our challenges ahead and inspire people. And if you're just telling the same old stories, you may get stuck in a false narrative just because it sounds good or because it sold last year. So I feel like I'm, in my 20th act, really, and I'm always constantly looking to make the work interesting and tap into new aspects of my own inspiration to approach the problem and keep going. We need our lifelong commitment to this work. It's a lifestyle, after all. And so we've got to make sure that we don't get burnt out.
Yeah, it's a long haul. It's
yes,
a marathon,
it is.
Not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
I first came across your work in 2015 when you launched Lonely Whale. What led you to launch that, and what lessons did you learn from it?
Yeah, well, I noticed because I was doing environmental work, and I was really a guest in many ways, going to every single charity and environmental opportunity possible. And I noticed that no one was talking about the oceans. And it was this sort of out of sight, out of mind, abstract thing that we didn't know how to communicate because it wasn't part of our everyday experience. So for me, it was a communication challenge and an opportunity. And also, the oceans are probably the most important aspect of our environment. And we all own it. It's a common pool resource. So I thought it's funny, like in a country where we really take pride in our ability to own things and to take control of them and to take care of them, that we were like vastly overlooking the oceans. And not only because it's ours, we get to take care of it, but we should be offended that there's so much destruction being done to our property. It's a property violation.
Yeah.
So when someone comes and dumps trash in your backyard, you're going to have something to say about it. But when they do in the ocean, not only do you not know it, but you don't really have any recourse for it. So for me, it was a communications challenge and an opportunity to bring people closer to that which is theirs, which is they're connected to inherently.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because in terms of the sort of unmet needs around the oceans, they're 70% of the Earth's surface and get less than 1% of philanthropic funding, as one example. So it's, to your point, the work continues.
Indeed.
But I understand now you've gotten you're deeply committed to oceans, and you've gotten very committed to regenerative agriculture. So can you tell us a little bit about that and sort of why you see that as critical to the climate fight?
Well, I have a philosophy. I practice this thing which I'm sort of creating called oscillation. You have to oscillate between the very big, the macro, and the very small. You can't get lost in the big problems of the world and get overwhelmed by them, because then you won't take action. But then you don't want to be so small that you're ineffectual. When I was thinking about the oceans, one reason why we started doing the plastic straw, and we launched right here the Stop Sucking campaign for plastic straws. The way I came up with it is I was trying to understand how we tackle the 10 billion tons of plastic that makes its way into the oceans. And I was overwhelmed. I was like, how do you even begin to do that? I was like, well, let's break it down into a single unit of measure. What's a single piece of plastic, a single microplastic? And, realize that the plastic straw was essentially representative of that single unit that everybody engages with every day. So it made the big problem manageable. So I like to go very big and imagine the challenges and the big problems, but then I always come down to something actionable and tangible and small. And so after 20 plus years doing environmental work, trying to, work on the world's problems, business solutions, hearts and minds, UN legislation, I needed to come small and very personal. And that's when I decided to start doing something that was extremely close to home and part of my family. So we started to work on regenerative agriculture because I wanted to know where my food was coming from, and I didn't want to cede responsibility to someone else or wag my finger at Whole Foods for not doing it right or something like that. And I wanted to know directly where my food is coming from. And I realized that I can actually solve a lot of problems just on an individual, localized, hyper-localized level by taking care of a small piece of land that I have complete purview over. And I can make sure that it's done to the way that I think needs, how I can actually steward that piece of land.
As somebody who's been so committed to the storytelling elements of activism, what have you learned about how you make those connections from the super personal to the global nature of the problem, whether it's on oceans or regenerative ag or things you learned through Lonely Whale or other things? Yeah,
I do believe that the future is decentralized. And this top-down wagging your finger, soapboxing, telling people how to be, who to be, I think, served its role. But I think we're going to be far more effective when people start to recognize that they want to take responsibility and that they're empowered to make changes where they are. And they're going to have an understanding of what's needed locally that someone in an office or someone in a high tower couldn't possibly understand. So for me, I'm representing that really decentralized island of cohesion. Like I can be one node in a connected network of people who are stewarding the land. And I want to be and even with Lonely Whale, one of our missions was to be as small as possible to be effective. Because when you start to scale to the point where your tentacles go so far out that you can't actually, take responsibility for what's happening, and you have offices around the world, you can't really know how how well you're doing. You lose touch a little bit. So I'm really into this concept of, creating neighborhoods and families that are deeply invested in what's happening in their hood, and it's a lifestyle. It's an everyday experience. When I wake up, I'm living in an environmental lifestyle. I am working with the land. I'm taking care of animals and plants and insects directly. I'm creating habitat for them. And do I need to be responsible for the entirety of the world. Well, how arrogant is that? How selfish is that? Like, I don't want to have to take the weight of the world, and nor could I. You know, I think a lot of environmentalists have this idea that they're going to save the world. You're not. You can do an important part in service within a community in which everybody participates, and that's the only way things are going to actually change.
It's interesting because since the time that you launched the Stop Sucking campaign, there's been such a broader groundswell of awareness of the problem of plastic pollution in the oceans and the link between the fossil fuels and the facilities that are creating the plastics and polluting communities and causing health problems, and then creating the ocean plastic problem on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
There was a statistic that was out from one of the environmental research groups that every person on average is eating a credit card's worth of plastic a week just through the microplastics in fish. And so finding these solutions that are quite, you know, tangible, that people can take action on can make a big difference.
Yeah, and honestly, on the land, you know, we don't need to use a lot of plastic, but we also recognize when we do use it, it's an extremely useful material, but we respect it. You know, and it plays a certain role. It's not just easy come, easy go. There's almost like a fetishization of plastic where it's everywhere and everything. And, you know, we have to respect it, I think, a little bit more. Because it's unrealistic to just do away with plastic. Yeah. It's not going to happen. And by the way, we wouldn't want to, because it does serve our society in many ways. But can we actually put it in its get into right relationship with it and put it in its rightful place?
Yeah, not using fossil fuel plastics for throwaway wrappers on a cucumber or a straw that you don't need in your drink, or chemical fertilizer, for that matter, to your regenerative ag.
That's right. I mean, there are many ways you can preempt all of the additives that we put into our soil, because we're starting with working in harmony, working in conjunction with nature as a partner. And nature does a great job on its own if we actually give it, you know, its due space to do what it does naturally.
And do you find that the work that you're doing locally on regenerative agriculture, you're able to engage others?
Well, when I was young, you know, I was arrogant and I thought I could change the world, and now I'm old and I'm wise and I, you know, realize I needed to change myself. So I'm trying not to change too many people out there, but I'm really an apprentice of the land, because there's a lot to learn. I have, you know, 46 acres, and I do not call myself a farmer. I am an apprentice of the land, and I'm just learning. There's so much, and I would recommend, I guess, if I was going to change the youngsters out there, is, you know, go get a permaculture class. Take a permaculture class. Start to learn the land before you start telling the world what the land needs. You know, we have these ideas, these abstract ideas of how our food should be or how our farm should be, but you never step foot in a farm because you grew up in the city. You know, there's a disconnect there. And when you start to learn, like a lot of my farmer friends, and by the way, most of my friends are farmers now, you know, they're doing things that when I was an arrogant youngster flying, you know, over them, you know, judging how they did their practices, I start to understand why they do it the way they do it. And if you start to understand the challenges that they're confronting, maybe you can come up with a solution that's actually better than insecticides or herbicides. But a lot of times you understand that with the way we treat farmers and how much money they make, the margins are so thin, we're actually incentivizing them to use these chemical fertilizers and these chemical methods of production, because they're just trying to make ends meet. And if they don't do it, you know, the risk is so high, they may not eat that year. So it's a lot to say from somebody, you know, who's living a cushy life in New York, that they need to do something differently. So I'm right there in the trenches with them, and I hope that I can contribute a little bit into how we might do things differently. But we'll see.
That sounds like a big change from New York and LA to your farm outside of Austin.
Yeah, I mean, I am humbled, to say the least. You know, before I thought I knew it all, now I know that I know nothing, and I have so much to learn. And by the way, it's extremely exhilarating and fulfilling to always be learning and have that, that child's mind of curiosity.
And what are you trying to do on the farm? Can you give us a flavor of what a day might look like, or some of the key challenges that you're confronting?
Yes. How long do we have here? Because it's a lot. There's a lot of details, a lot of complexity, and really, just working with the flow of the earth and trying to design not only the natural spaces, but also how we design community, how we engage people to show up and participate and reward them appropriately so they want to keep coming back. And that's the biggest challenge, is a lot of people are turning away from this work. A lot of the older homesteaders and farmers, they're relieved and excited that I want to learn from them, because all of their kids have moved to the cities, and there's not a lot of people wanting to understand this lifestyle and to do this work. So everything's turning to industrial farming or mechanized farming versus what I think is the healing way to create community, which is small communities with lots of farms, nested within those communities. So that's part of what I'm trying to solve for, is not only learn how to actually take care of the land and steward it and create habitat for bees and animals and as much diversity and complexity as possible, because that's when you breed resilience and strength. But also, how do you create community so that people feel like they want to be there, not just to as a weekend retreat, but as a full lifestyle.
So you've been at this, as you said, a long time, this activism and world-changing work. How have your priorities shifted? How have your approaches pivoted and evolved as you've learned along the way? And by the way, as we've solved some things, and a lot of problems have also gotten worse.
Well, I've recently just become a father. My son is 13 months. And if I don't burst into tears because I love him so much, I'll try and explain. When I was younger, I really believed that we shouldn't bring any more kids into the world. I thought we were doomed. I had a very cynical outlook. And really, I was just trying to get mine until I died, because I believed in a finite experience. And it was very dark and cynical worldview. Now I realize that I'm planting seeds for trees whose shade I won't actually ever get to enjoy, but it's for the younger generation, for my kid, because I'm having a conversation that's on an infinite timeline. So if you know the finite infinite game, I used to just play the finite game like the most myopic, mortality focused timeline in which I was just very selfish. But I've expanded myself to realize that, no, we do need to have children. We need to take care of them and give them opportunities so that they can grow up and live in a better world. And that world will happen if you look outside of the self into a longer time horizon. Native Americans did it 7 generations. You can do it too if you realize we are not doomed. So environmentalists that want to, they want to tell you that they know the future and that we're all doomed. I'll challenge them on that. I don't believe that's true. It can be true, but that's up to us and how we show up. And so there's so much wisdom in young people and kids, and that's just been my whole focus is, what am I learning from being a father?
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And big deal to spend your evening talking climate with us when you could be celebrating your birthday with him. So hopefully you'll get home soon.
We'll celebrate tomorrow morning after he wakes up. But
that's good. That's good. I wanted to ask you about what gives you hope, but I guess I'll also ask the related question of what sort of advice would you have to the audience here for what they can do to make a difference based on your experience?
Yeah. The myth of separation is real. We feel isolated and disconnected from one another, from ourselves, and from nature. I think when we start to solve problems from that perspective, I think we make mistakes. And first, before you provide solutions or you participate in any changes, let's first understand ourselves and how deeply connected and interconnected we are with each other and with the earth itself. I mean, we are emergent from the earth. We come from the earth. So you are not a mistake. There's a lot of rhetoric out there that makes you want to believe that we humans are destroying the planet. That's not true. We are the most creative opportunity for the earth. So instead of minimizing your footprint, maximize your handprint. Go out there and build the world. Participate. Use your creativity humbly. You know, don't. In permaculture, you observe the land for as long as possible before you impose your will upon it. So before you start pushing your ideas to change the world in the way you think, first make sure that you're understanding yourself and the world to the best of your ability, and that you're really deeply feeling into that experience, and that it's not all just an intellectual decision, but that you're actually connecting in on a deep level. And this may feel a little bit esoteric, but I think it needs to be. I think this is a spiritual opportunity for us to grow in deeper connection. And we need place in the world, and we need to create places that invite us home. And the earth is our home.
I like the maximize your handprint and the hopeful vision for people, right? About the world that's possible if you stay connected and engaged and figure out the difference you can make.
You think about, how you solve problems if you think everything's doomed versus if you have a belief in what's possible. You're going to make different choices.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good note to. It's a good note to share with this group. Well, I really want to thank you again, Adrian, for all your leadership on these issues and for spending the time with this group. I want to thank this group.
Can I invite everyone to? So I do have some. I'm still communicating with the world now through Earthspeed. Earthspeed is my channel. It's my documentary series, and it's a lifestyle in the cadence of nature. And we're really looking to promote a lifestyle that is more deeply rooted in the land. So I invite you to check it out.
That's great. Check it out. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it. Thank you. Great.
Please welcome back to the stage Bloomberg's John Frere and Meg Szabo.
Well, that concludes our opening night of programming. Yeah. Oh, once again, I'm sorry. You all clapped. I got excited. Once again, I would like to thank our title sponsor, Amazon, our official airline, Alaska Airlines, our supporting sponsor, Providence, and our contributing sponsor, Weyerhaeuser.
And please stay tuned for more programming tomorrow. So we'll be back bright and early tomorrow at 8:30 in the breakout rooms around the complex here. We'll be back on this stage at 9:30, on the idea stage downstairs at noon, and then we kick off on the outdoor climate creative stage at 1 p.m.
Another thing just to mention is we have a climate run tomorrow in Myrtle Edwards Park, and a fun run on Saturday. You can find more information in your app on all of the things that we're mentioning. If you want to build your own schedules, you can do that as well. And if you have an all-access pass, we hope you can join us right now for the opening night party at KEXP Courtyard, which is just across the courtyard. We'll see you back here tomorrow.